crypto today a bit, about VSC, about the problems we're facing, and the solution that VSC is supposed to be. So if you're going to remember one thing about this presentation that I'm about to hold, is that VSC essentially is Hive reaching out to the wider crypto ecosystem. It's bringing the Hive community to the wider crypto ecosystem. It's bringing the crypto ecosystem to Hive. So to begin, nowadays blockchains function in many ways as isolated islands. A lot of them have their own wallets, their own identities. A lot of them have their own token standards. If you want to access an application on another blockchain, or you want to receive a transaction from another blockchain somebody wants to send you, they either have to create their own new identity on your blockchain, or you have to move to theirs to do the same thing. Essentially starting from scratch, building a new identity, a new wallet, and such goes on. So you need a new identity for Bitcoin, a new identity for Ethereum, a new identity for Solana, for Hive. That's not ideal for many reasons. It's akin to having to download a new internet browser every time you want to visit a new website. For us that have been in crypto for a long time, we're kind of used to it. We're kind of used to the friction that exists. But for new users that have been on Web 2 for a long time, this is not something they're facing in their everyday lives when they're using the internet. In many ways, Web 2 has dealt away with the core issues of user experience. When it comes to the user experience in crypto, the problems that it faces aren't tied in many aspects to the front-end experience. They're not tied to the interfaces. Those are getting to a certain level of quality on their own ways. They're tied to, the bad user experience is tied to the core fundamentals of how cryptocurrency ecosystems function. They're tied to the core experience. Now, you could ask the question, well, why is that? Crypto has been here for more than a decade. Why hasn't this been addressed? Why hasn't it been fixed? You could say one of the reasons would be inward focus when it comes to development instead of outward focus. You could say it's because of focus on short-term growth, short-term gains, instead of long-term sustainability. You could even say it's because of crypto tribalism. Crypto tribalism, basically saying, why use their blockchain when you should be using ours? Why develop a solution for a user that is going to hold a token that's not the token that I hold? That's kind of the mentality currently prevalent when it comes to development, when it comes to investment with VCs, even the communities. If you try and enter some of the Discord of these communities, you're gonna feel this type of crypto tribalism if you ever mention something that's not related to their blockchain. Of course, there are some bridge solutions that exist, wrapping and so on. They also face another problem, and that's centralization, of course. They either are entirely and completely centralized. We're talking about 60, 70, 80% even of these bridge solutions are entirely centralized or have small operator sets. That creates a single point of failure, which is a problem. There are also some cross-chain solutions that have some potential that are coming up, are being developed. But even saying that, the current total activity on blockchain, taking that into account, only 1 to 2% of that goes on to these bridge solutions. So they're not a rounding error, but they're not too far off of being a rounding error. And when I'm talking about this type of bad design, you have real examples of hacks and failures of these bridges. Even though they account for a tiny percent of the total activity in blockchain, some of the biggest hacks, biggest losses in crypto history happened on these bridges. For example, the Ronin bridge, Wormhole, Nomad. And I would even invite you guys that are, maybe you're not as technical as some people here, looking into how poorly these were designed. You would be shocked, even as a layperson or a newbie, how bad some of these solutions were. Skip one. No, okay. Beyond the security issue, they also have another problem, that problem being their business plan. It's not about connecting ecosystems, it's not about bringing interoperability or dealing with liquidity fragmentation. Their business model is based around asset capture, basically grabbing liquidity and locking the user in on their own blockchain. So even if they do call it bridging solutions, they basically continue the same problem that existed before. In summary, so I just want to mention a few cross-chain solutions that actually have some potential. For example, Thorchain that uses the Rune token, or Chainflip. In relation to VSC, we kind of take a similar approach to one of aspects of their functionality, that being the cross-chain swap system. But we take it to the next level, essentially acting as an evolution of what they're offering when it comes to these solutions. In summary, the problems crypto today is facing: liquidity fragmentation, bad user experience that's tied to crypto fundamentals, lack of interoperability, and centralization or poor bridge design. So, finally getting to VSC. For the sake of time, because this could go on for a long time, I'm going to break down the functionality of VSC into three kind of bullet points. The functionality is much wider, expansive. We could even throw in the liquid staking for HBD in there, but just focusing on these three for the time being. So first of all, it's smart contracts. Secondly, cross-chain swaps. And thirdly, kind of the new technology that we're pushing forward, that's based on cross-chain swaps, essentially expanding what the technology behind cross-chain swaps can do. Smart contracts, pretty standard offering when it comes to blockchains currently in the market, or L2s, how you want to call them. The difference here being that this is the first time a decentralized solution has existed when it comes to smart contract deployment on Hive. They're fully customizable, and we're going to have it ready in a couple of weeks' time. We currently have one of our developers writing the documentation, so inside 2 weeks you will be able to deploy your own smart contract on VSC. You'll be able to deploy your own token. That has a lot of implications for a lot of different apps on Hive, and I've been talking to some of you guys about some of the ideas I might have for some of your tokens. That's the easy part. So when it comes to cross-chain swaps, this is a significant functionality being added to Hive. You could, again, kind of split the type of users that exist in relation to this functionality into three kind of parts: users, collateral providers, and liquidity providers. Those are kind of the participants in the ecosystem when it comes to this functionality. For users, what they do is they're the ones that actually commit the transactions, that do the trades. The advantage for them is in being able to completely avoid the custodial systems, the intermediaries, completely avoid wrapping. We use native assets. They're exogenous to VSC. They exist on the main nets. So for example, when you commit a trade, you're essentially locking, if we take BTC as an example, you're locking Bitcoin in a vault on the Bitcoin mainnet. The Bitcoin is then routed through the liquidity pools on VSC and exits on the other side. For example, if it's Ethereum, the Ethereum wallet address is going to receive ETH that's native to Ethereum chain. When it comes to collateral providers, this is kind of tied to the security aspect that I discussed in the first part of the presentation. Collateral providers essentially secure the whole protocol. They're the ones that over-collateralize all the liquidity and all the assets that come into the VSC protocol. For each dollar of liquidity, $1.5 worth of Hive is used to over-collateralize all assets coming in. What this does for the security aspect is, even if one of the validators is compromised, the user funds or the security or stability of the whole protocol is not affected in any way. Even if you had a single malicious validator that wanted to steal user funds, they will not be able to because of the economic security attached to it. They would be losing more money that they would be getting from taking the liquidity. So that's kind of dealing away with the problem that all these wrapping providers, wrapping solutions, custodial providers had. So if you want to run a validator node, it requires 2,000 Hive as a start, and you will be securing the protocol. Thirdly, we have we have liquidity providers. When it comes to liquidity provision, it's important to mention two ways that we are distinct from currently legacy existing solutions in the crypto market. Firstly, we use a single asset as the base asset in all trading pairs. What this does is essentially allow us to have much less liquidity pools than these legacy solutions need. For example, if you had 100 assets being listed on VSC existing in liquidity pools, you would need only 100 liquidity pools. So one liquidity pool for Bitcoin, one for Ethereum, and so on. With these legacy solutions, you would need around 5,000. So you would have to pair up Bitcoin with Ethereum, Ethereum Solana, and so on. In this scenario that I just gave you, there's about 50 times more efficiency in this type of system. And as the number of assets goes up, in number, the efficiency of the whole use of liquidity increases. The second advantage, which would be kind of advantages over our current competitors, is using a stablecoin as the base asset in all pairs. When you use a stablecoin, you're kind of only exposing the liquidity provider to one-sided volatility. They only need to think about the exposure to price action from one side, which it's not, in this case, kind of, you wouldn't call it an advantage or disadvantage, just kind of giving liquidity providers a new choice, new option. So in the case of VSC, you wouldn't be able to have a scenario happen like with Thorchain a couple of months ago, with the fail of Thorfi and their lending side of protocol, where liquidity providers lost on both sides of liquidity provision. Yes. So some of you, even though I rambled on about how this works and everything else, might ask, what does this do for Hive? I'm not going to talk about what it does for the price. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the price, but I could talk a bit about the actual demand. So you could have, you actually have demand drivers from three sides. From the side of actually getting trading fees in. Each trade creates some kind of fee, that being in Bitcoin or Ethereum, etc. That fee is then sold. That Bitcoin or Ethereum is then sold for HBD. The liquidity providers and the collateral providers receive HBD as the fee. So you could say in a way that as the volume rises, there's more buying pressure for HBD as well. And we all know if there's not enough HBD in the system, you have to buy Hive and then convert it into HBD. Secondly, if you're generating fees, there is demand for more liquidity in the system. For each dollar liquidity that you bring in, for example, in Bitcoin, you need $1 of HBD. If the demand rises, again, you need more HBD, you need to convert more Hive into it. And thirdly, since it's all over-collateralized with Hive tokens, the higher the liquidity in the pools is, the higher the collateral needs are as well. So those three kind of levels on where the demand drivers will come from. There we go, next slide. Yes, now to go on to third functionality, that being native asset mapping. This is kind of the evolution, as I said, of the technology that exists with cross-chain swaps. What this actually is, it allows different blockchain wallets to hold tokens from whatever other blockchain. So for example, you could, which is currently in action, hold Hive tokens, HBD tokens inside a MetaMask wallet address, inside Ethereum wallet address. you will have a scenario in a couple of months. We're launching the first pools in about a few weeks. You will have a scenario where you would connect a Solana wallet and send Ethereum tokens to a Bitcoin wallet address. This is virtually unheard of, and it completely avoids the system that these centralized solutions currently use. The way it functions is basically the exact same way. Each of the tokens that you bring onto VSC or coin is over-collateralized, just like with the cross-chain swaps. Each of them is secured with Hive. So again, if the user base increases, if people find use in what we're offering, this will expand as well. Implications of this technology are far and wide. So first of all, it goes back to the user experience. If you're using a system like this, you're completely abstracting the complexity of crypto use. A new user will not have to even understand that you cannot send tokens between blockchains. They would not even need to download any wallet. They will just use the one that they are used to, the interface they're used to, whichever they want to use. Maybe they want to use a Bitcoin wallet address. That will be the identity they will be able to connect to VSC with. Let's not jump to the next page. You could also see implications when it comes to remittances, when it comes to merchant payments. We've all heard about payment solutions that exist that all these other blockchains are bragging about. They still require you to use their own token. They still require you to use their technology. You will have a situation by using VSC where a merchant will be able to receive a payment in whatever token they want, or the buyer will be able to make a payment in whatever token they have, whatever wallet they have on their phones. A lot of things there. Most of this stuff we cover in our blog on PeakD that you can read more about. Now, you might also ask, what's the ecosystem participation incentive? Why would I want to be a part of this? Beyond this being a cool little project, Lil, on, on Hive. There are incentives that exist, of course. Validators, collateral providers, they get 33% of APR. That's coming from deployment of all HBD inside the protocol. This is also tied into the liquid staking for HBD that we also built out, which allows you to use HBD in a liquid manner, have it participate in DeFi, being able to put it inside liquidity pools while it's still generating the 15% per year APR. That's kind of tied to this. Secondly, liquidity providers earn fees, and we have a token slated to launch in 2026. The white paper for that will be out very soon. We will mainly be rewarding participants in the network and contributors, so look out for that. And if you guys have any questions, I could go on for another 15 minutes. That's going to be it from me right now. Thank you.
Yeah, a talk without a question from Sorin. Could it be?
It could not be. We cannot allow that. Thank you, Damir. Very interesting. First question to start easy. Will it be EVM compatible, Solidity interpreter?
The compatibility is we're still discussing that. What we're focusing on is wallet interoperability.
Start again.
What we're focusing on right now is wallet interoperability, getting tokens into these different wallets. I think when it comes to EVM compatibility, that's not going to be the focus of the smart contracts, but in other terms, that's something that will be available soon. EVM is slated for, I think, November or the end of October. That's going to be the first integration after the Bitcoin liquidity pools and the Bitcoin forks. That's coming very soon, in a couple of weeks. Second question.
Okay, this time you are allowed to have 2 questions.
Thank you, thank you. That was the échauffement, how do you say, the warming up. Huh? It was the easy question. Now the hard question. This sounds awfully complex, even to me. I before your presentation, I thought I was an expert. Now I didn't get anything from what you're saying. So that was just the opening. First thing is it a proprietary closed solution? I guess no. What do you have planned in terms of marketing? Because we're talking about how important marketing is. This sounds like an amazing technological breakthrough, but it's completely, I'm going to use a rather, let's say, colloquial French term, and I don't want to translate it, but the French term is imbitable. Look it up. Yeah, what do you have planned in terms of marketing? And related to that, would you come to Luxembourg to present VSC?
Yeah. Well, we're not currently at the stage where we will be kind of focusing on user acquisition. Once these liquidity pools launch, we're gonna be doing this through integrations with different crypto wallets and aggregators. So we're going to be using the same approach that the other cross-chain solutions like Thorchain and Chainflip are using. The plan is to kind of undercut their fees a little bit just to get attention early on. So that's going to be the way we're going to approach getting people using our product early on. After that, we're going to see what happens. We're already trying to use some of the ideas that I presented here and implications of this technology to kind of give options to certain applications on Hive, some of them on Hive Engine, some of them not, to connect to these other ecosystems. I mean, I might even share something right now about world mapping. It's just a preliminary discussion, but just to give you an idea of what it's possible to do using this infrastructure. Once we connect to Solana, VSC essentially becomes an L2 for each chain that it integrates with. So currently it's an L2 for Hive. It's going to become an L2 for Bitcoin, an L2 for Solana. You will be able to connect your Solana or Phantom wallet to VSC and be able to interact with smart contracts from the application. So if you use a proof of brain system on your world mapping or in Leo or PIGD application, the Solana user will have access to that just as much as a Hive user. A Bitcoin wallet, an Ethereum wallet, will be able to click vote, will be able to own the token that you own, access to the whole ecosystem. So this creates a lot of benefit for any application that builds on VSC due to the access to liquidity from all these different chains.
Hi. I know he can go on for a little bit longer. You have a question?
Yes. I'm very curious. You're saying that everything turns into, or VSC turns into a layer 2 for any of the chains you just mentioned, including Hive. And then all of a sudden the question to my mind popped up. Connecting it to the token launch of the VSC token, are you guys planning on sticking with Hive, or is Hive the launch pad with this nice DAO funding? And then, hey, let's use VSC token as the new collateral, and all the benefits you just mentioned are poof out of the window? Just curious.
This question needs to get a little answer. If you could do it short, it would be lovely.
Yes.
Yes or no?
So I know the presentation was a bit long, but if you noticed, I mentioned at a point what this does for the demand for Hive token. So each of these things, when you connect all these different blockchains to VSC, everything is routed through Hive and HBD. So if you bring one Solana token into VSC, you need $1.5 worth of Hive for it. So this will always remain as such. So collateral providers. Yes, yes, in terms of dollars. So you can see, I mean, Hive isn't a one-trick pony. So there's demand from other side. If this takes off, if this has a user base, this has demand, the effect on Hive demand and Hive token price. Yeah.
Hi. I know this topic could have an own event. We will talk about this later.
Sure. Yeah. No problem.
When? Yeah, whenever they are live and so on. But nevertheless, I know you are the next speaker.